Greetings and salutations, my name is OJ as always, and welcome back to another episode of the DBD-a-thon, a series of videos where I go over every single killer in Dead by Daylight, from Trapper all the way up to the recently released Springtrap, where I cover their in-game lore, aka just reading the bio that they have, their power/gameplay, their teachable perks, as well as their base design and my favourite/least favourite cosmetics for them. Today's object of obsession is Adiris, also known as the Plague. And as I do with every single one of these videos, I'd like to start by reading off the in-game bio/lore for the Plague. If you're looking for actual in-depth lore stuff though, don't come to me. I'd suggest going to someone, say like Pixelbush, who's done a few good videos on the lore of Dead by Daylight. But with that said, let me read through her in-game backstory, which reads as such. When she was 5 years old, Adiris, the youngest of a family of 7, was left on the brick-red burning steps of the Temple of Purgation at the centre of Babylon. To process her shock and sorrow, she held on to the belief that the gods had a plan for her. Her new life was one of quiet servitude. She would tend to the gardens, prepare ceremonial meals, and polish ceremonial incense burners. At night, she would pray for a sign that would reveal her purpose. When she came of age, she attended the high-ranking priests during the yearly worshipping of the sea goat, the god of water and creation. Swinging a censer down the great hypo-style hall, I think that's how you say it by the way, I'm not sure, she cast thick black fumes that reached the cold, towering stone pillars before dissipating. Her worries lifted, and the resulting bliss made her feel closer to the gods than ever. She worked herself to the bone each day that followed, fulfilling her duties while taking on new ones, as she aided the priests during the purification rituals. The priests were more and more in need of assistance. Cleansings were being performed daily to answer the demand from outside the high temple walls, where a catastrophic plague had resurfaced. Within months, the priests contracted the disease. It did not take long before they became too weak to perform any kind of ritual. Adiris, having assisted many purification rituals, was the only one able to carry on. The swelling panic had to be contained, even if by a novice. Anxious before her first ceremony, Adiris visited the priest's sanctuary chamber. When she lit the candles, she noticed a narrow opening at the back. Sliding through the gap, she reached a crypt hidden underneath the sanctuary. The chamber was bare except for the golden statue of a woman who stood with outstretched hands, her fingers covered in jewels. It was the sign Adiris had been waiting for. The great hall was packed with followers who bowed down as Adiris entered. She strode to the brick altar and grabbed a ceremonial dagger forged in silver, her ruby-ringed fingers wrapping around the blade like claws. The sudden display of luxury intrigued the followers, who were struck already by her youth and beauty. As she began reciting the epic of creation, a woman at the back swooned and collapsed. Adiris rushed to her and noticed the black blisters covering her feet. Without hesitation, Adiris grabbed her sacred blade and swung it at her own foot, severing a toe. Then she offered the bloody part to the gods, asking them to protect the woman. A silence fell over the followers, who revered Adiris as their new priestess. Tales of her wealth, beauty, and devotion began to spread across the city as quickly as the disease. Soon, Adiris's followers called her the High Priestess of Babylon. But her faith was tried when she showed the first signs of infection. Her cough became a mix of phlegm and blood. Her neck erupted in abscesses? I think that's how you say that too. And her four-toed foot darkened. Ashamed of her condition, she began wearing a veiled headpiece and carried a censer that masked the rancid smell of sick that clung to her skin. Hoping to be saved, she kept performing the rituals, offering blessed water and food to her followers. But no ritual could save her. In a desperate attempt to appease the gods, Adiris banished herself from the city. She travelled north with a few followers, venturing through the cold woodlands of Urashtu until it was no longer possible to walk. They camped in a damp cave where Adiris laid in a pool of her own vomit. Her foot, which had turned black, was so swollen she could go no further. Her followers and she realized the truth in that cave. They were all infected with the plague. Kneeling amongst her retching followers, Adiris made one last prayer. The black fumes of incense rose into the damp air before being wiped off by a cold breeze. Neither the body of Adiris nor her followers were ever found. Many told tales of her return, but no one truly knew what fate had befallen the High Priestess of Babylon. I really like the Plague. I'm very, very, very fond of her. She's not my favourite killer they've ever created. Original, at least. But she's definitely in my top 3. She's also in my top 3 most played killers, and I think her lore has a lot to do with it. Because, similar to a killer that we recently talked about, that being the Spirit, for the most part, Adiris is pretty pure, all things considered. If anything, she's selfless. You know, with the whole cutting off her toe thing. Obviously, there might be other bits and pieces of lore from tomes that I might not know of, which actually make her out to be evil, per se. But, for the most part, go reading her in-game bio and that alone, she is not evil in any way, shape, or form. However, she is very, very devoted to the entity, even if she didn't realize it. Those black fumes that came from her incense, yeah, that's the entity talking. That's his little, well, not it, their fog, or its fog. It's an otherworldly being. It doesn't get a specified gender, per se. It just gets to be anonymous. But yeah, the Plague is a lovely killer. I really like her lore, because it portrays her, she isn't evil. It's funny that some of my favourite bits of lore are the ones where they're not evil. It's kind of a balance for me. It's either they have to be abhorrently evil, like comically evil, or tragic. And I think Plague fits into the tragedy part. She is a woman whose devotion to her gods, as well as the entity unknowingly, pushed her forward to be the woman that she is, to be as selfless as she is. She tried damn near everything to save her followers from the Plague, as in the bubonic plague, or the Black Death as it eventually got called. Those are separate plagues. They just are similar in symptoms, if I remember rightly. I did medical history, and I know if my history teacher ever saw this, she would kill me for saying this. But anyways, yeah, I like the Plague a lot. I like her lore a lot, and I like that she is one of our few, like, nice, not nice, what would you call them? Sympathetic killers? Tragic killers? Her story is tragedy, same with the Spirit. But yeah, I like Plague's lore, and I like her a lot as a character anyways. But with all of that said, we move on to her power / her gameplay. Now, before I speak about this next, her actual gameplay, power, etc., I would like to give a warning for anyone who has, you know, a fear of vomiting, sick, puke, any other word like that, because I know that a lot of people I've seen people on Dead by Daylight Twitter, I know, scary place, don't go there if you trust your own sanity, but yeah, I've seen a few people complain that they have to leave games if they're against the Plague, because they literally just can't handle her existence. So if you have an issue with that sort of stuff, I would suggest maybe moving to the next section where I talk about perks and stuff, just so you don't have to hear me say the word, you know, vomit 800 times over. But with that said, the Plague's ability is known as Vile Purge, where, with a brief charge up, she is able to vomit all over survivors, objects, and the environment itself. When vomiting on objects / environments such as pallets, windows, generators, hooks, etc., it leaves this sort of green aura to them, and any survivors that interact with those objects become infected. And you can also become infected if she directly throws up on you. Once a survivor is infected, they will continuously cough, be covered in a green, sickly look all over their body, and occasionally they will also vomit, which is part of the reason why people literally can't handle playing against her. Hell, even I don't really like the vomiting all too much. Well, I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. Not whatsoever. But obviously it's just kind of gross. It's meant to be gross. That is the whole point. But once a survivor is infected, after a certain amount of time, or if the Plague continues to throw up on you, they will become broken, which makes it so you cannot be healed in any way, shape or form. And you will stay broken and, you know, downable in a single hit unless you cleanse yourself at a pool of devotion. Once you cleanse yourself, you will be healed back to full. You will lose the sickness status effect. However, said pool of devotion will become a pool of corruption. When a pool of corruption is the way it is, the plague can approach your pool of corruption and consume the corruption. Take a shot every time I say corruption. Don't do that, actually. Don't do alcohol. Don't do alcohol. What? Why do I say it like that? Anyways, when she consumes the corrupted pool, she gains Corrupt Purge instead of Vile Purge. Corrupt Purge is basically it acts similarly to her throw up, like a Vile Purge, has a similar pattern, physics, etc. However, instead of infecting you, it just damages you immediately. It's arguably the strongest ranged power in the game, but the thing is, obviously you have to work for it. Well, not work for it, but you have to go out of your way to get it, and survivors have to cleanse too. But yeah, it is a very, very strong power, like the Corrupt Purge, because you can literally just look upwards, hold it in, and then just flick it around, and then it's just raining death. A single hit, you will get injured. If you're already injured, instant death. Now, I am very fond of her gameplay and her power, mostly because of the options both sides have. When it comes to survivors, they can obviously choose whether to cleanse or not to cleanse. That sounds like a Shakespeare quote, because it is. Well, it's not directly. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. But if survivors don't cleanse, they are broken for the rest of the game, and, you know, they can be downed in a single basic attack. However, they deprive the plague of the Corrupt Purge, because if they never cleanse, well, she only gets the pool of Corrupt Purge that she gets at the beginning of the game. However, if they do cleanse, then not only can, you know, they actually have 2 health states, but then she gets access to Corrupt Purge, a powerful ranged ability which she can easily down people with without much issue. The only thing stopping her are like walls, but even then I've seen plague players just spray the puke straight upwards, and then it comes flying back down onto survivors in loops. So yeah, I'm very, very, very fond of her power. I really like the sort of dynamic it gives both sides, which, is that the first of its kind so far in this series? I think so. Not, yeah, no, yeah, well, no, I lied. The pig has a thing where the survivors have to go off and do something. Yeah, and I guess Freddy as well, because of the clocks to wake yourself up from the dream world. But when was the last time that anyone ever fought Freddy, right? Outside of the 2 times I played him for that video. But anyways, I really, really like Plague's power. It's very fun to use because of how its trajectory works, how you can like just sort of shake the camera side to side and flick it everywhere. It's fun. It's really fun. At least to me it is. There's a reason she's my 3rd most played killer, right? But with her perks, not her perks, with her gameplay discussed, I'd like to move on to her teachable perks. Now here's some good news. Her teachable perks are actually pretty good across the board, which is kind of a rarity. A lot of the time, killers just have 1 good perk, rarely 2, and rarely 3. I think Plague is one of the few that does actually have the, you know, the magic number 3. And the first of said perks is Corrupt Intervention, with a description reading as such. Your prayers invoke a dark power that meddles with the survivor's chance of survival. 3 generators located furthest from you are blocked by the entity for 80, 100, or 120 seconds at the start of a trial. Survivors cannot repair these generators for the duration. Affected generators are highlighted by a white aura. Corrupt Intervention deactivates whenever a survivor enters the dying state, and it has flavor text reading as such. It shall be known across the land that the gods curse the unfaithful. From the Tablet of Adiris 3:7. This is, you know, I'm going to say it. I'm going to throw my hands up and say it right here, right now. This is the best killer perk in the game. Full stop. The best one by a good mile now. Because of some recent changes with how survivors spawn into the map, before they would spawn, not randomly, but they would usually spawn kind of close to each other, but not close to each other. Like maybe 2 would be paired up and the other 2 would be elsewhere. But now it's been recently changed that everyone spawns next to each other. This perk was already good as is, right? Blocking the 3 furthest generators from you is a good thing, and it helps a lot of killers, especially someone like Trapper, have a chance to even like set themselves up. Or hell, even someone like, I don't know, Wesker. Wesker would benefit from the perk because then he can find someone and get his infection going or something, right? But now the perk's even better, as if it wasn't already really, really good, because survivors now will spawn together, usually leading to them finding gens together and all getting on a gen together, usually leading to, at least in some recent games that I played during the anniversary event, which is currently ongoing, it's led to like the first generator being popped in like 30 seconds. Like 30 seconds into the match, I haven't even found anyone, and the generator will go. Corrupt Intervention prevents that. It prevents that first generator popping quicker. This perk, which was already really, really good, has gained even more value. And in my opinion, it is the best perk in the game, because it allows so many killers to just be better. Trapper is infinitely better with this perk on. Hag, infinitely better with this perk on. Anyone that has to build up, like Nemesis or something, infinitely better with this perk on. It is the best perk in the game, and I will live and die on that hill until, you know, they nerf it. Though, admittedly, it does have one disadvantage, which is that when someone is downed, it deactivates. But honestly, that's not too big an issue, because if you've gotten a down because they're not able to work on a generator miles away from you, because you know, Corrupt Intervention blocked it, you know, count that as a fat win. Ain't no problems there. But yeah, this is the best perk in the game as of now, as of when this video comes out, in my opinion. And with that said, we move on to her second perk. Said second perk is Dark Devotion, with description reading as such: the display of your powers creates a whirlwind of panic that spreads throughout the land. You become obsessed with one survivor. When the obsession loses a health state, your terror radius transfers to the survivor for 35, 40 or 45 seconds, and its radius is set to 40 meters. You are granted the undetectable status effect. The survivor with the transferred terror radius is also considered to be inside the terror radius for other purposes. The killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. Undetectable hides killer's auras, terror radius and red stain. With the flavor text reading: and terror shall take hold of a defiant non-believer who shall falsely announce my arrival. That is from the Tablet of Adiris 48-9. This is a pretty good perk. It's a pretty fun one at that. As it says, it's pretty simple to understand. Damage this obsession, then you get undetectable. That can be really fun, especially considering the fact it transfers the terror radius to the obsession, which can lead to some mind games. It is a good perk, not crazy, but good, and I'm quite fond of it. As you know, as I've said in previous videos, anything that gives me undetectable or haste, I'm going to like it, because I like jump scaring people and I like speeding at people at 100 miles an hour. So yeah, though I will admit, the kind of pseudo upgrade to this perk is Furtive Chase from the Ghostface, because when you hook the obsession, you get 10% haste as well as a lot of undetectable. So I like that perk a little bit more, but Dark Devotion is still good and still fun, of course, because undetectable, that is fun to use, at least on specific killers. But no, on all killers it's fun, as long as you don't have undetectable built into your, you know, gameplay anyways, like Wraith or Ghostface. But with that said, we move on to her third perk. Said third perk is Infectious Fright, with description reading as such: the cries of the unfaithful make your heart leap. Any survivors that are within your terror radius when another survivor is put into the dying state will scream and reveal their location to you for 4, 5 or 6 seconds, respective of the perk level. It has flavor text reading as such: horror overcomes the heart of the infidels, I think it's infidels, who cry at the feet of the fallen, from the Hymn of Praise 11-4. This perk is just kind of funny. It's just kind of funny. It's a decent perk. It's fun to use, which, yeah, maybe she doesn't have some of the best perks in the game. Dark Devotion is good. It's okay, and Infectious Fright is fun, but it's also just okay. Corrupt Intervention just carries her perk lineup that badly or that hard. But Infectious Fright is a fun perk. It's fun to make people scream. I've used it in a few other killer videos. I think I had one where it was just literally screams galore, I think I called it. I'm not sure who I used it on though. Might have been Doctor. Like, I just gave myself an enormous terror radius and just made everyone scream. Yeah, that would make sense. I think it was Doctor. Don't fact check me on that. Well, you can if you want, but anyways. Infectious Fright is fine. I don't have much to say about it. It does what it says on the tin, and I can't really think of any fun synergies with other perks right off the top of my head. But anyways, with that said, we move on to her base design and her cosmetics. Now, in my opinion, I am of the belief that the Plague's base design is arguably one of the best original killer designs in the entire game. It does what it says on the tin. It is a Babylonian priestess in, you know, the traditional golden, holy-looking robes with an incense burner, the same one that released the black fumes from her lore. But, as her name suggests, she is absolutely covered, head to toe, in the bubonic plague. It is a very, very striking design, like visually. I absolutely love the marks of, you know, the plague all over her body. It looks gross, it looks disgusting, and as I've said many times before, the grosser something is, something usually interests me. I'm very fond of gross, sort of dark looking killers. Like, I'm going to be real with you, we'll get to him when we get to him eventually, but Trickster is not one of my favourites. I'm not very fond of him. Well, kind of. I have a respect for what they're trying to do with him, but I'm not fond of his design, per se. But that's because he doesn't have what I'm looking for when it comes to killers, or what I prefer in killers. And what I prefer in killers is gross designs. I'm a big fan of body horror, because I think body horror is innately interesting to look at. Like, it makes me gag and all that, but The Fly, the film, is absolutely fantastic. The Thing, absolutely fantastic. And what do both of those do? Incredible body horror. Unbelievably good body horror. But the Plague kind of plays into this, with the Plague visibly being seen on her figure, with all of the pubis bulge thingy majigs and the rotting skin, and the fact that her face is kind of like half torn and the veil is poorly covering the infection across her face. It just looks absolutely amazing and absolutely gorgeous, which, you know, that is what they said in the lore. They said she was unbelievably pretty. And, you know, just if we just kind of look past all of the bubonic plague and the rotting flesh and stuff, you can see it, right? Yeah, right? Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, come on. I'll give you a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? But anyways, with that said, we move on to my favourite and least favourite cosmetics. Now, as I do in every single one of these videos, the way I rank my favourites and least favourites is that when it comes to least favourites, I'm not allowed to pick anything below a very rare, because if I could, I'd pick some shitty yellow recolor and call it a day, which is boring, right? And for favourites, I'm allowed to pick whatever the hell I want, even if it is like, you know, a yellow recolor, which is usually not the case. But speaking of my least favourite skins, Priestess of the Damned. This skin, okay, I've just complimented her base design quite a lot, right? But when you're charging, you know, a tenner for a skin, I expect the design to look a little bit more different. This skin just looks too similar to her base design for me to like it. And you know what, for the longest time, I'm going to argue that Plague had the worst catalogue of skins in the game. She had nothing good. Like, she's got a lot of bad skins, which are just barely different from her original design. I know obviously the idea is she's a Babylonian priestess, so you kind of have to keep it in that realm of looks, but you don't. You really don't. And for some reason she went years without having any skins that weren't just like redos of a priestess in green and yellow clothing. Like, none of them even looked good either. If I wanted to use that, I'd just use her base design, and this is the most egregious offender of it, in my opinion, at least. At least the other ones kind of maybe do some other stuff, but this one doesn't do much for me at all. I think it's kind of cool that she has like almost like a beehive shaped infection on her stomach, and I like the snake motifs on her legs and hand, but otherwise I don't like it. It's too close to the original design, and for the price that they charge you for it, yeah, it's not worth it. But with that said, we move on to my favourite. Now, some avid viewers of this channel may remember a while ago I said that my favourite skins usually are the ones with aquatic themings. The Plague is the one that started all this. Sea Goddess is by far, and in my opinion of course, one of the best skins in the game. Full stop across all killers. Hell, let's throw in survivors too. This skin is unbelievably gorgeous. I had been waiting years for a good Plague skin, something for me to spend my money on. This was it. This is unbelievably gorgeous. The headpiece alone makes this a top 10 skin. The fish skull, the seaweed as a veil across her face, the coral being this bright but still somewhat decayed blue colouring, the seashells across her chest, the golden marking, like the golden necklace, the fact that her lamp is covered in seaweed and algae, you know what I mean, like those weird little grey rock things. It's not yeah, it is algae. Dead fish on the incense burner as well. The fact she has gills on her on like her sides. There's actual gills, and she has like fins coming out of her arms and her hands. This skin is mind-boggling. How good it is. It's a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous skin, but still manages to represent the body horror in the Plague that I love so much. The fish scales across her stomach, the thingy, the gills that I said about, the fact that she has kind of like fish fins on her legs as well, are unbelievable. A mind-bogglingly amazing skin. Easily, maybe, might just be my favourite skin in the whole game. Like, the entire game. Like, there's some designs that are better than this skin. That belongs to a certain someone who shall not be named until it's their time to come into the sun. But this is easily my favourite skin in the whole game. It's unbelievably gorgeous. And I cannot wait that in like a couple weeks we're going to get a version of this, but for the Xenomorph, where it's like a weird fish thing. That skin, when they previewed it in the anniversary stream, jaw dropped. I audibly gasped at the sight of it. It is that gorgeous. I love aquatic themings for any skins. Despite being a pussy and being afraid of big, massive, open bodies of water. Like, I could not play Subnautica to save my life. I don't like being a big, massive... There's a name for the fear, but I don't remember what the name of it is. But, anyways, with my gushing over aquatic themed skins done and dusted, we have reached the end of this video after 27 odd minutes of yapping. As I've said, I really love the Plague. She is easily in my top 5 favourite killers in the game, just as a whole. And I hope you've enjoyed my rambles, or me rambling about her. And with that said, I hope you have a good evening, afternoon, morning, etc. And like, comment and subscribe if you feel so inclined. The next video shall be on none other than Danny Johnson, also known as the Ghostface. It's really corny that he's called the Ghostface, but you know how I'm on about. It's Ghostface time.